What's up, DBE fam? Welcome back to the show. Today we're doing a live episode, which I'm really excited about. We're actually sitting at our elite mastermind retreat with a bunch of beautiful women all staring at us, which is really exciting. These are our multiple six and seven-figure business owners, and we have had them actually submit a bunch of anonymous questions to the team and I. So right now I'm sitting with Lauren.
Hey, hey.
And Mike.
Hey, guys.
And we're doing a team panel. So we're going to answer some of these questions that have come in anonymously, and we figured, why not put them on the show? You ready?
Let's
do
do
it
it
without further ado. So question number one coming from the audience was, where do you find a VA? How should I hire someone to start building a team? So I'm going to let Lauren and or Mike take that.
Okay, well, we have a very large community inside of the club that can definitely help you out, and there's definitely people in the DBE community who are VAs, so I can connect you with those, whoever the question was from. Also, Mike, you know this, there are like different sites.
Yeah, we can link the site in the show notes, but there's all sorts of sites to find VAs from all around the world, which is great because they will do anything from organizing your back end to more complex tasks like building out landing pages and writing code and everything in between. It's a similar like to a job search site where you can just really type in what you're looking for and get granular. But yeah, we can link that in the show notes. But there's a lot of resources out there to find VAs both in the States and also just around the world, which is exciting.
There are also Facebook groups fully stocked with VAs. So there are full free Facebook groups you can go in and find VAs. And the only thing that I would say is the most important thing if you're going to hire a VA or anyone is know what you're hiring for. You don't want to just like hire a person and think they're going to fix your problems. So know what the problem is that you want fixed. Like Mike said, if it's coding or is it back end, is it graphics or whatever, know what it is first and then look for the hire.
Yeah, and then just obviously the price, the hourly cost for a VA is going to be vastly different if it's someone that's doing like what I was doing, like birthday cards versus Kajabi backend. So just keep that in mind as well.
Love it. All right, next question. If you were to rebuild your business from scratch, what would you do differently? I'm going to take that one since this was initially mine. If I were to rebuild it from scratch, what would I do differently? I hate the answer, which you heard from some of our speakers this weekend, but it's so true. I wouldn't really do anything differently because then I wouldn't be where I am today. However, I would have fired faster. So there have been people that I have held on to longer than I probably should have in the business because of personal relationships or not wanting to deal with it or thinking that I don't have the time to deal with it and how am I going to fill the gap, right? So fire faster. I also would have hired faster. Not hired faster in the process of hiring, but hired sooner. I would have hired sooner. I think a lot of it for me was ego, which is a lot of us. We can do it all. We're already doing it all. Maybe a little bit of control stuff. You don't want to give it up. You think you can't. And I think for me also going back to now, like let's go 2017 when I went full time, I didn't think that my money mindset was in a different place. And so even though we were making an abundance of money, it was like, I can't pay for someone to do this stuff because I can just do it. And that was kind of the mindset that I had where it was like, why would I pay someone else to do something that I can do? When I started to recognize it's actually just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so it was like, actually these tasks are things that other people can do as well. And what in the business is the stuff that only you can do. And really that's where you should stay. And so it's like, well, I'm obviously going to be on the podcast or I'm going to be the one that's doing the coaching calls, but someone else can do the birthday cards, right? And so it was an ego thing for me. It was a money mindset thing for me. So I would have hired sooner. I would have fired faster. But really I wouldn't have changed anything because I wouldn't be here. Oh, we've got coming in.
I just want to add one thing because I know it's applicable to specifically a few people in the room and probably everybody, but we also ran into a thing where we hired some specialists that were extremely disappointing and very expensive. And oftentimes there's people that can do it better because they're hungrier and they can do it for less money, or you can have someone on your team that might be able to do what you're trying to do. But it's like we hired, so specifically I'll use an example. We hired someone to do some copy at one point, and we paid a decent amount of money for it. And it was something that we 100% as this team could have handled. But you don't know what you don't know. So we know this now. This is a lesson that we learned by going through that. But this is why I wanted to share it, because it's like, hey, you know what? Take a stab at it first. Have someone else look at it, because you might be better at something than you think you are, and you actually might like it. And we've found that we like different things in the business that we didn't think we would. So that was something that I just wanted to add.
Yeah. Very good point. And we were hiring specialists, and we did this many times, as you said, as a grasping for straws. Yeah. We were like, this person's going to save us, this person's going to help us, because we thought maybe we didn't have the skill set or the capacity. And when you hire looking for like someone to save you, in our experience, it's never worked out. And it took us a couple times doing that, multiple 5 figures of investments we were like, wait a minute, hold on. That's not the solution. Like, hiring someone to solve our problem isn't going to solve our problem. Yeah.
And then just to tie that up, you think they're going to save you. They're not. You can figure it out yourself. But us having done that, like, will save you from having to do that, because it really is true. Like, you can figure it out, and yeah, it was very disappointing.
There's a time and a place for it. When you're trying to scale, you can't do everything.
Yeah.
But this, for us specifically, going to the question, it wasn't the time and place for it. And also, to your point, Jess, the intent behind the why, the why wasn't in line with like hiring a specialist for this particular role, and we totally could have. Many times we could have handled it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a help me.
Yeah, for sure.
It was a help me.
Yeah, or like, oh, this is gonna just absolutely blow this launch out of the water. Like, and no.
If only.
Didn't know. This question's gonna actually go to all three of us, interestingly. So the question is, well, backstory, if you didn't know, Mike and I move a lot. The last 4 years we've moved a lot, because we were living in an RV for a year and a half.
For the last 10, we've moved every 2 years.
Yeah, actually the last 20.
I wasn't with you past that.
But I'm just saying, both of us, like, since college, we've both moved every 1 to 2 years.
Yes. Correct.
That's over 20 years.
Correct among those.
But yes, the last 12, we have moved every 1 to 2 years as well. Together.
And now we just stuck Montana into it.
Yeah. The dog. Okay, how has moving impacted you? How has it impacted your business? What advice would you give to the version of you that was about to relocate? That's why I was like, all three of us are actually going to answer this. I'll kick it off. I mean, how has moving impacted me personally and then in the business? There's a couple things, right? So if we go from the initial move of when I left my 9-to-5 job, we were living in New Jersey. I was a school teacher, very normal. And then we moved into Manhattan. We moved into New York City, and I had a really big life here. I had a really, we're sitting in New York right now. You can feel the energy of it. It's a hustle. It's a grind. It's motivating to be here, at least for us. There's an energy here of get shit done. And so I think a lot of the success of the business is directly correlated to the chapter of life in which we lived here in New York. Whether it was opportunities, networking, I was speaking at a ton of events, I was going to a ton of events, training celebrities. I mean, it was really just an incredible opportunity. So I think that move really escalated things for me. On a personal level, it was really fulfilling. Also, when we were living here in New York, I was kind of bi-coastal because I was in 2 different masterminds at the same time. They were both based out of LA, and they both had 3 retreats a year, and all 6 retreats were in LA. So that was 6 months out of the year that I was, in LA back and forth, and just a lot of travel. It was really fun. I think the next move, when we left New York, we ended up moving into the RV, which we did 27 states in 14 months. That one was harder personally. I think I'm not going to speak for both of us because you can go, but there was definitely a feeling of isolation. There was definitely a feeling of loss of identity. There was a grieving of that like Northeast energy, and all of a sudden we're having campfires and like, I don't know, if you don't know anything about us, we're like nightclubs and sexy restaurants type of people, not really like all the time hiking and campfires type of people. But when we were living in the RV, that's a lot of what we were doing. I mean, we hit so many national parks, amazing, our country's beautiful, and it was just the 2 of us, and we were in the middle of nowhere, which equally was amazing because we felt very off the grid and we could just do whatever we wanted, and nobody really knew where we were, and we'd squeeze work in during it. And then the move after that was to Scottsdale, which we loved, and the move after that has been now to Asheville, North Carolina. Scottsdale for me, incredible entrepreneurial entrepreneurial community, a lot of really great friends there. One of the draws there, aside from the weather and just all the amazing things, was the community there. So for me personally, felt really fulfilled there. And now where we are in Asheville, it feels very perfect for the season we're in, about to welcome a little one into the family. It's very like, I feel hugged by the mountains. I feel very like nurtured. My brother's down the street and sister-in-law. And all of those feelings of those moves have affected the business 100%. And I think both of them can talk a little bit more about it. Anything for me from inspiration to motivation. There have been seasons like in the RV, I really wasn't that motivated to work. That's when I stopped taking on one-on-one clients, and I haven't since, which I used to have a lot of them. It just was like we wanted our calendar to be more open so that we could be really present and enjoy the journey that we were on of traveling the country. We didn't want to make any regrets or have any regrets, but then it impacted the business. We also went from launching our signature program 4 times a year down to 3 to 2 to 1, and that all happened in that travel, in those moves. The goal was to always get to that place of doing it once a year, and like how can we pour all of our energy and efforts into one as opposed to 2, because they all each launch requires so much. But numerically, if we haven't made up the difference yet, which we haven't, it's like, okay, well then you feel that in the business as well. So there have been things, scheduling, which Lauren will talk about. You know, we joke about it now, but it was really hard. It was very, very challenging, both to be in different time zones from the team members. No, I'm talking about me. I felt perpetually behind. Like when we were in Arizona, we're 3 hours behind. No matter what, I wake up at 5 every day. It's already 8 on the East Coast. Lauren's got hours of work in. I just felt behind the entire time we lived out there. So while I loved it out there, I felt behind. I felt disconnected from, friends and family. So I think the business has had growth because of all the moves, and also I think it's felt it because of all the moves as well. Like I think it's equally been both. And for Mike and I, being near friends and family is really, really important. So there's we're back in that swing now where we're near family, and that's super nurturing. So yeah, it's affected the business and the personal life in a lot of different ways. But I'm grateful for the fact that we can move around like that, like psychopaths.
So someone asked the question, so clearly they're maybe thinking about it themselves. And what came up for me was, if the move is intentional for whether it's personal, business reasons, then it's like, do it, because everything can be temporary. And for us, when we initially moved to New York City, it really expanded us. It helped me in my career when I was working at the bank. And with Jess, she was able to make some incredible connections. So that right there was like a really good intention for us to do that, and it worked. But as far as the hopping around that we've done over the last few years, it's been disruptive. We've worked through it, and I think it's made us, there's no denying, it's made us stronger and better and more efficient. Because now that we're settled, I think we'll all agree we can feel, it's like, you get used to something that's harder, and now it's like so easy, and the communication is easy, we're all in the same time zone. But it was disruptive. But again, that was temporary as well. So it's like, you're not going to know, and you're not going to really get a taste of what it's like until you do it, right? But again, if it's for something that's intentional, where it's like you feel like it's going to expand you personally and business-wise, or if you don't feel like you're going to expand until you at least scratch that itch, it's like, yeah, you got to just do it. But I know you can talk more about the disruptions.
So being, on the team with them moving, the first time that they did it with me was RV life, and I was a huge proponent of them going on the road. Like I was like, absolutely, go do it. And the cool part was I got to live vicariously through them doing RV life, and I never need to do RV life now, which is great because it was a great time, the 14 months in the 27 states I got to go to. But I'm so happy they did it, and I think it's such a cool thing to be able to do, and we made it work. But it was definitely challenging. But the funny part was I had only been integrator for 4 months, so it was kind of like all I knew in a way. If it happened now, I think it would be vastly different of my opinion or feelings on it. But I think it's what you don't know, right? And it wouldn't have been as challenging, but the biggest challenge was Wi-Fi. Yeah. And the business runs on Wi-Fi. So we made it through. Obviously you can imagine with Wi-Fi and Zoom what that looked like on some meetings, like, and
Some meetings.
so, but we,
Time zones was tough.
the time zones are definitely challenging. But we did it. We made it through. And I always say, I think, it's really funny that God put me on a team with husband and wife, because it does present different challenges than like if you're just working with one person directly. But we are such a strong team probably because of that, right? And I also do believe that, that's why y'all are entrepreneurs, is because you get to do these things. You get to seize the day. You get to have these opportunities that, like, it's already over. Like, and we survived, and it's all good, right? I do think that the Arizona chapter was a little bit more challenging with the 3 hours behind at times and lunches. And, I go to bed a little earlier. So, like, being in Slack at 8, 9 p.m., like, it's 5 o'clock for them. But I experienced it too. Like, I would be out there, and then I would be like, messaging Amanda like 2 o'clock, hurrying, oh my God, you got to get this in. And so I felt it too. But, now we're here and we're all like settled, and I've moved too. But I think moving is very powerful. So if you want to move, do it. It changes your life in so many ways. And my best friend used to say, we're not a tree. Like, we don't have to stay in the same place. We're humans. Go experience your life. Go move, especially if you don't have kids, you don't have a partner. Like, it is so freeing. You learn so much about yourself. And yeah, so.
The last thing I'll say, it kind of makes you appreciate, well, for us, it made us appreciate things that we didn't really appreciate, especially, yeah, specifically about the East Coast, whether it's friends and family, specifically for us, like New Jersey, which I know some people are like, Jersey, but like, yeah, I mean, we miss a lot of aspects of it, culturally and friends and family, but also, yeah, I mean, we lived in the desert for 2 years and we were obsessed with it. It's very similar to California and Scottsdale in the sense where there's the brown mountains and palm trees and things like that. But when we came back to the East Coast, we were like, wow, it really is green out here. And it sounds silly, but it was something that now, like when I go for walks, I appreciate it.
Yeah. I have 2 last things. One is, if you are going to move, just plan it. Don't move in a busy season. You know what I mean? Like, that's definitely, like, don't be like, I'm moving next week, like, if you have a team. And the other thing is that a lot of people might not know is I think that I've been to, between, 14 states or 14 cities with Jess and Mike. Like, that's more than my parents, so.
So that's a positive?
That's a positive, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, who gets to say that? That's pretty crazy.
I know. And some of them multiple times, like Park City and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
come on out again. All right, next question. I think anyone can really answer this, but have you ever felt judgment from your friends or family? How did you navigate that judgment? What mindset perspectives have helped? I don't know that I ever really felt judgment from friends and family. I think a couple reasons. One, I was older when I got into business, so I didn't leave my job until I was 32 or something like that. Like, I was already an adult, we had a house with a mortgage, and my friend group at that point had been pretty locked in. I'm also friends with a lot of entrepreneurs. I don't have many friends left from high school and college that I keep in touch with. So the ones that I do have always been supportive. In fact, my very best friend, my childhood best friend, shout out to Jess, we love her dearly. She was the one who was like, you have to quit your job. Like, what are you doing? I mean, she pulled Mike aside when we were living in New Jersey and kind of gave him a whole spiel of how she thought I had to quit. We had just come home from one of the events that I was hosting, and she was like, dude, it's time. Like, she's got to leave. So I feel very fortunate that my friends and family have been supportive. I remember I was scared out of my mind to sit my parents down at 32 years old and tell them I was leaving my job with a pension and benefits and summers off. And I really was just so nervous because I already felt a bit like a failure. I come from a family of a lot of doctors, lawyers, accountants, like very traditional in that way. And I had dropped out of physical therapy school. So I had dropped out of my doctorate program and was working as a teacher, and I already kind of felt like I was a disappointment to them. They never said that. That's just how I felt. And when I told them that I was going to leave my job, my dad looked me straight in the face, and he just was like, well, you didn't go to college to be a teacher. And I was like, what? Come again? So I've been very fortunate to not really have judgment that I've seen. Are people judging me behind the scenes? Absolutely, probably. Are like friends talking shit about me behind my back? Maybe. I definitely have fizzled friendships, not because of what I'm doing, but just because the conversations are no longer really in alignment. But the way that I look at friendships, is I kind of just compartmentalize them. And I think that people, that quote, like they're in your life for a season, a reason, or a lifetime, but also there are people in your life for different reasons. And so when I am hanging out with maybe friends from back in the day and we're kind of doing the glory days thing and reminiscing, I have to be, it's me. So I have to be okay with, cool, for this night or for this weekend, we're probably going to talk about that type of stuff, and I have to be okay with that. It's an expectations game, right? Because your expectations equal your experience. So if I go into that weekend and I expect that these friends who know nothing about business and entrepreneurship are all of a sudden going to be my saving grace to talk about landing pages and want to hear me complain about technology issues or building a team, that's on me. Like that's a me thing. So I've really just shifted and kind of compartmentalized. When I'm with these people, this is what I'm going to gain from it. When I'm with these people, this is what I'm going to gain from it. And I think the more awareness that I can have myself going into those different rooms, and then I come into a room like this and I'm like, yeah, let's talk funnels, right? It's like, then I'm left happier and I'm left feeling less judged and I'm left feeling more supported. So I think it's a you game at the end of the day, because you're the only thing that you can control. And that's all I have to say about that. I don't know if either of you have anything.
So when I became integrator, it was like so exciting, but no one knows what that role is. So when I would tell my friends or family, it's like, oh, okay, like what do you do? And at first it was very lonely. Like I felt very alone. They put me in a mastermind for a year and that was very, very helpful. But then not having it, I felt the loneliness again because no one understands launches and this or that. So what I found was you find spaces that understand who you are. And so like I found like EOS, as y'all know, I love EOS, and they had monthly calls. So I would go to those monthly calls, and those calls helped me. Even though I didn't know those people, just being in that space, I was like, oh, I feel like seen and heard. So then when I was with friends or family, like I was okay because they didn't get what I was doing. They had no idea. But they now at this point, because I'm so in it, and they started seeing like more things I'm posting and like the retreats and stuff, now people are very supportive. And actually like during the launch, people, it's like some of my friends would be like, how's the launch going? Like what number, like how many students are you at? You know, and I was like, that's so sweet, that's so cute. And I think the more you believe in whatever you're doing, the more your friends and family are going to do the same thing.
I love it. This is a two-part question. I think we'll split up kind of who answers it. So the first part is, when leading a team, how do you navigate a team member leading with low energy, or if they're being stern or using intensive tones in meetings and comments? And then the second part of it, what is the best way to give feedback as a leader to your team? So I'll kind of just like kick it off and then I'm going to pass it over. I think this is a skill that we're not taught. I don't think we're really taught leadership. I look back at being a teacher in school and I'm like, man, how did we just we skipped that one? Like no one's taught leadership, and we're not really taught it at home either. So what I have found is kind of fumbling my way through, and I know I never necessarily worked in corporate America, but I still was always a leader, right? I was literally a teacher. And I think the best way to learn how to lead is to do it. And I know the other day we had an incredible speaker here, Sam Tooley. He was talking about leading and being a CEO of a franchise company, and he said, he's like, I'm learning through doing, and it's very humbling, and I think that there really is no room for your ego. And so there have been difficult conversations for sure. I have definitely messed up, and I think Lauren and Mike would say maybe even they have had moments where they're like, I'm not proud of how I handled that particular thing, whether it was on the receiving end or the leading end. So I think open and honest communication is the best thing. In terms of giving feedback, you can do the whole sandwich it method and give them a compliment and then give them their critique and then follow it up with more positives. We don't necessarily do that. We'll even say it. We're like, we don't need to do the sandwich method right now, but here's what's going on that's working really well. Here's something that I'd like to change. I think the only thing that I would say, and this comes from our relationship too, our romantic relationship, is speaking sooner, which I historically just let it bottle up because I'm like, it's fine, and then it'll bubble up. And whether that's in our actual personal relationship or it's in the business and how I'm leading the team, it's kind of it's fine.
You don't like conflict by nature.
I don't like conflict by nature. You're right. But then something will happen, and it could be the silliest nuanced thing. It could be oh, every time that the branding is done, this thing is on the right and I want it on the left. And I'll sometimes say off the cuff to Mike in a personal way, because we live together, oh, it's every time. And he's like, well, have you said something? And it's no. Well, how many times has it happened? I don't know, 77? And it's well, then it's on you, right? And that's, again, where the leadership comes in, where it's well, I could just say something and I'm sure that it would get fixed, because that's not really a difficult fix. So it's similarly to the hiring of like, I can just do it myself. It's like, that's not leadership. So me changing it from the right to the left every time is not leadership, because I get annoyed or I get resentful or I'm tired or whatever it is. So best way to give feedback, I think, is clear and kind. It's just, you got to be straight and you got to be kind. And that's sort of the approach that I take. In terms of leadership with, both of you, because you're both leading as well, I don't know if either of you want to jump in, just navigating if it's, intensive tones or anything like that.
It's a small thing to add. I just think one of the things that I used to see at the bank with people that did not perform well with their teams, they were checking all the boxes in terms of, like what Jess was just saying, communicating and bringing up topics. They weren't avoiding things, but they weren't being genuine in their delivery. And if you're not being genuine, the people can feel it. And oftentimes people move away from being genuine when they have to deliver a message that's uncomfortable. But it's like, if you deliver a message that's uncomfortable and you're not being genuine, it's not going to come through to the person, and they're going to feel that you're just, going through the motions and checking boxes, and it can sometimes come across as condescending. So we have we have difficult conversations, specifically obviously Jess and I do, because we're together a lot, well, all the time. And Lauren and I do as well, and it goes both ways. And I love the relationship that Lauren and I have, because we don't, I certainly don't, and you can speak as well, and we don't hold on to anything, but we've had a lot of tough conversations, and it's gone both ways. But what we've done is we've learned to take the feedback from each other, because in our business, and it doesn't work like this in most, there's part of our org chart where Lauren technically reports to me, and then there's times where I report to her, and that might sound messy, and people listening to this might be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. It makes sense for us, and it works for us because of the way our org chart works, because we're in different seats in the business. So we both know that if I mess up, whether it's acting out on a meeting or I do something wrong or I don't pass something in, and I know that if Lauren wants to give me feedback, I have to just shut up and listen to it, because I know she's just doing it for the best, for the greater good of the business. But I only know that because I know Lauren's invested and the way she presents herself and things like that. And then also vice versa. One of my favorite things is over the past, I would say year and a half specifically, how receptive you've been, Lauren, to my feedback. And then it empowers me to be able to give you feedback and not feel like I have to walk on eggshells. Yeah, I just think it comes down to the frequency of communication, the genuineness in the communication, and just making sure that there's clear boundaries and an org chart in your small business. Because if there isn't one, everything's helter-skelter and you don't know who's reporting to who.
I'll add, if that's okay.
You can add? Yeah.
So first, leading a team, how do you navigate the team member with low energy? So again, you always want to think about the business, right? What is the impact on the business? And so when you see this, you immediately want to address it. You don't want to wait, because it's only going to get worse. And if you care about this person, and this person is normally high energy, or they're a great team player, the way you do it is just like you would do with a friend. Hey, I noticed your energy's been lower lately, or I noticed that you had this tone in a meeting. Is everything okay? Because I know you to be this X, Y, and Z person, so I want to talk to you about it because I really care about you and I care about having you on this team. So you just lead with kindness, and I've been able to do that because I have a tendency where I'm this nice person, and then when something happens, I turn into the Hulk. And so now I no longer turn into the Hulk because it doesn't help, and even though I did it because I cared, it's really not nice, and people are not receptive to that. And I've learned there's always going to be different types of people that you're working with. And so managing a team is like a class of kindergartners, right? Everyone's different. So it's not the same answer for every single person. It's going to be very different, and you have to recognize that within them. And then the best way to give feedback, I learned this in my mastermind, is that you can tell the person, hey, I want to have this conversation with you. Maybe, I'll just use an example of maybe they missed sending an email, right? Hey, I noticed you missed sending this email out. I made this mean that you don't, care about the business, but I'm guessing that's not what actually happened, and maybe you just forgot. Can you let me know what happened? And so you're letting them know, like, hey, this is what it felt like, but I know that's probably not true, so let me know. And that way they can tell you, oh my gosh, you know what happened? I didn't see it in the Monday board. And then you can see, oh, there's a part in the process that's broken. Oh, there's a part in the process we need to build out. Because a lot of times that's all it comes down to is there's a process issue. There's a breakage. And so we have things like that happen, and I build it in immediately. And you know what? Yeah, sometimes it's annoying or whatever it is, but guess what? If it gets the team to get the job done and it holds everyone accountable, that's all you want to do at the end of the day.
Yeah. And we've done exercises on that where it's triangulating the problem. So like bottom left is Lauren, bottom right is me. Up at the top of the triangle is like email didn't get sent.
Yeah.
And then from the thing that didn't or did happen, right, email did not get sent, you then draw a line down the center, and on the left you go fact. Fact is email did not get sent, was supposed to get sent on this day, was supposed to get sent on this time, this person was responsible. And then fiction is on the right, and fiction is the stories that we create. What I felt was this, and it meant that you didn't care about the business, or you didn't care about what I have to say, or you don't think of me as an authority. And that's the conversation then that comes in. Was that you?
Yeah, I was basically just going to say, like, the person's not the problem.
Yeah.
There's a problem. The two people are there to kind of figure it out,
Yeah.
and identify what it is. And the other thing, Lauren recommended that I think all of us read Radical Candor.
Oh, yeah.
Has anyone read Radical Candor?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
that
really
book,
great book.
that book is incredible. I wish
Yeah.
I read that book.
A long time ago.
Yeah, when I was coming up as a
Yeah.
manager in corporate,
100%,
because
yeah.
my God, did I just go against so many of the things in that book. And like when I was reading it, there was points where I just was like, oh God, I can't believe it. Like that's why I caused that, or like what you were just talking about, where it's like
Hulk.
approaching it with I mean, I would turn into the Hulk, and like it was coming from a place
Yeah,
of
'cause you
total
care.
caring for the
Yeah.
person and knowing that like they could be
Yeah.
so good and also caring about the business, but it's like that's not going to get us anywhere.
No.
It did with some people,
Yeah.
but not everybody responds well. I respond well to like tough criticism and direction, but like not everybody does,
Yeah.
right? And so anyway, Radical Candor if you haven't
Very good.
read it.
Yeah, and that's where also like knowing how your team works is important. Like, is it tough love, or does this person need more coddling? And
Yeah.
without judgment, right? Okay, we're gonna do one more. We're gonna wrap the podcast episode with one more question. So this one, very nice handwriting. Knowing that you've launched alone and experienced multiple six-figure launches with Empower, which is our signature program, you've done it without a debrief and having data. You've done it without collecting metrics. You've done it without ads. You've done it with less than 10K followers. You've done it without having a large email list. For context, we've had very successful multiple six-figure launches since 2018, and that was before the team and all these other fancy bells and whistles. So the question is, what is different about what you've done compared to someone not getting six-figure launches? I think there's a lot of things. I think timing is something, right? And I don't want to take that away or not talk about it. I think it's not talked about a lot. I was helping people build digital businesses before everybody was doing it. So I was very much in a blue sea where it's a bit more red now. And so, yes, I might be good at what I do, and I might have had a lot of hustle and grit, which I did because that's how I got here, but also there's a timing aspect of it. So I started in 2012. I mean, that's 10 years ago. That's 12 years ago. It's a long time ago. And then I was teaching business in 2017. And so the timing of it, I think for me, was also just very favorable. Luck, they said, like preparation meets opportunity is luck, right? And so I was prepared. I had the skills. I had already been doing it. I had the clout. I had the clients. I had the results. And then opportunity it was a blue sea. And this is pre-pandemic. I'm talking 2017. Like it still was very much a blue sea. I think I also had a lot of ignorance, and I think ignorance really is bliss. And I think that there was just a level of, I call it dumb confidence, where I feel the more we learn, the less we know. And I say this all the time. So at the time, I didn't know what I was doing, and I just was doing it. Like I look back, and this is when Lauren first was following me. I didn't know she was even following me, but I would just bop around New York City, going from the gym to like another client, and I'd be talking to the camera with like 150% confidence, not thinking or worrying about like, does this connect to my opt-in, and is there a funnel, and what is this person going to think, and where am I driving, what's the call to action, what's the hook. And it was a different landscape. Like we could post, I mean, in 2012, I joked with you girls the other day, I would post a crappy picture of my food and my workout. I'd use Pick Stitch, put them into a little thing together. It would say Pick Stitch on the bottom because I didn't pay for the app. And then I'd pop a Valencia filter on top and I'd put like a lame caption, and it worked. And that was the landscape at the time. And so I do think there's a timing thing. I think that there was a hard work, a hustle, and a grit too that went along with it. I mean, I look back at what I was doing specifically when I left my job in 2017. All I did was work. I mean, I was out of the apartment 5:30 in the morning. I'd be at 6 a.m. Networking as well, yeah, but 6 a.m. I'd be with my first client in real life. I was still training clients in real life. I was also running two ends of the business. So at the time, I had my health and fitness business, which was making a ton of money, and that money was then able to make me credible, right? Like the success I was having was what then made me credible to be a business coach. And I was simultaneously running our signature program, which still exists today, Empower. So it was like the health and fitness business that had exploded was the clout and credibility to then say, I can help you with business. I also still worked in a gym, and I was working as kind of like a fitness influencer in New York. Wasn't necessarily getting paid for posts, but I was being invited to events 2-3 days a week. I was going to 2-3 events a week, getting asked to speak. I was an Athleta ambassador. I was doing just a lot of opportunity here. And so again, I do think a lot of it was timing. It was opportunity, but also I intentionally put myself in the room. When I gave notice, we came back from holiday break when I was a teacher, so like January 7th or 4th or whatever, I gave notice to my principal, and that was going to be my last year teaching. And I had no plan other than just like do what I need to do to make ends meet. From January until when I left my job at the end of the year, I would take the train into the city from Jersey after school at least once or twice a week. And I would spend the money and spend the time taking the train into the city, $40 for a pop-in fitness class. I'd go to, Barry's and Fitting Room and all these cool bougie places by myself. And I would meet as many people as possible. And I'd introduce myself to the training staff, and I'd introduce myself to the front desk staff. And by the time we moved to New York in April, when we moved here, and that very first weekend we were here, I went to go start to get a job. All of these trainers, all these fitness studios were like, wait, you don't live here? This isn't like, you're not a trainer here in New York? And it was like, no, I've been inserting myself into the industry because I knew it was going to be coming and I knew it was happening. So I do have to give myself credit there, where it was just like, it was a hustle. I mean, it was grinding. I was hosting events and doing all sorts of things like that as well. And I very much believe if you want to speak on a stage and you don't have a stage to speak on, build it. And that's what I did. And so I was literally hosting events once a month. I built my own stage. 250 people came. We hired an event planner. It cost us a lot of money, but I wanted to speak on stage. Well, I needed B-roll of me speaking, so I built my own stage. And I just kept doing that for years. So I don't even know if I had really answered the question, but what was I doing differently that someone might be doing now? I mean, again, it's the basics. It's the foundations. It's the years that I put into it. Let's not also discount 2012 to 2017. 5 years I was doing it part-time, figuring it out, selling ebooks, blogging, doing lives on Periscope, running free Facebook groups, running paid Facebook groups. So I had so many years of experience before I got into it. And it is more difficult now because it is more saturated. So saturation's not bad. Saturation causes innovation, but it's our job as the business owner, as the founder, as the creator, we have to out-sophisticate the saturation, and that's hard. You have to stand out. You have to out-sophisticate the saturation. So saturation's not bad. We're in New York. There is a coffee shop on every street corner. Y'all have been passing them. Yep. There's literally, I see 4 different types of coffees on the table right now from all of you girls, and you all came from a 1-block radius to this event space. There are different brands on the tables because there are so many coffee shops. So it's like, saturation's okay. It means there's market demand, but it's our job to stand out. And that means that you get to get better at marketing, you get to get better at messaging, you get to get better at copy, you get to get better at content creation. And oh, by the way, you're not going to get better at all those things at the exact same time. So it's shifting your focus from one piece of your market or one piece of your business, and then to the next and to the next and to the next. And once you've kind of gone through all those pieces, guess what? You go back to the beginning and you refine again. We're always working on the basics.
And just a funny little thing, when she was doing Fit Trips and her big event, I saw all that. And I wasn't working for her, and I wanted to go, but I couldn't afford the event that she had put on. But I was seeing her doing stuff in New York City, which I just find to be so crazy years and years before we even started working together. So
That is wild.
I saw the hustle.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add is just, I think people see the tip of the iceberg for a lot of people, right? We do it as well sometimes, and someone pops up out of nowhere. Like for me, it's been maybe Dear Media and what are their names?
Lauren and Michael Botts.
Yeah, Lauren and Michael, and I didn't know who they were, but I mean, they've been doing this stuff for like 20 years
Yeah,
or
I
something.
went to an event in 2014
Right,
to meet Lauren
right.
in New York. There were
So
20 of us.
the big thing is is patience. When you think about what you were doing 15, 16, 17, 18, it was like all those people were like following and watching, and then it like, but there was no call to action. There was no click to buy. There was nothing to buy. And then when there was something to buy, they bought. And then there was a lot of people, so let's run another cohort. So they bought. And then COVID happened, right? So like we talk about timing, yeah, that played a huge role, but also it was the years of the networking. And so when we talk about basics, it's networking, it's building your leads, and now where things are a little more saturated, the sophistication comes from, oh, well, why do you do a big launch like this? And why does it take so long? And why is there a team? And why is there a debrief? And this and that? Well, it's like, well, because in order for us to do the launch the size that we want to do it, there has to be enough leads. And without hundreds of thousands of followers that haven't purchased Empower yet, we have to out-sophisticate. And we
Well,
have
it's
to
also
be...
like, where are you going? Like, it's not just where you are right now, where are you going to? And I think sometimes people forget that. It's like, oh, well, I don't need that right now. And it's like, yeah, but where are you going to go in 3 years, 5 years? Similar to what we were talking about, like with the club and Circle and all that, It's
Yeah.
like, where are you going? How are you going to scale it if you just keep it so small and just you? It's going to be impossible.
Totally. And like, it's been, the first few times it was really uncomfortable for us to just continue to like launch the same way.
Oh my
And
God,
especially
so
going down from 3 to 2, I was like,
So scary.
I run the finances
Crazy.
and I was like, oh my goodness, we're going from 3 to 2, like, because every time we go down one, the launch has not yet made up for
Yeah.
going down. We know it can, right?
But we decided.
Yeah. But we were like, all right, well, we know that we have to kind of face this fear, step through it, stick to the plan, stick to the process. And it's been a 3-year test of
Yep.
trying different things.
And I think, just something that I think is funny is like you think it's going to happen so fast, but then you think of like Amazon or all these people,
Yeah.
right? And it's like 10, 15, 20 years they're in the game, and like that's the reality. Like, are you willing to stick it out and keep going and keep doing it when you don't see it yet, but you know it's on the horizon? And it's like that's it. That's just what you have to do, and
Totally.
you keep going.
Well, I'm going to end it with a quick story. This happened the other day. I went to Bonnaroo, which is a music festival, back in 2006. 2006, I think it was. And Mike and I were talking the other day about my Bonnaroo experience, and I said, I want to pull up the flyer. I want to see and remember who was there. I know Radiohead headlines, because that was one of the reasons we went. So we pull up the flyer.
biggest band in the world.
They were the biggest band in the world, 2006, long time ago. So I pull up the flyer on Google, because you can Google anything. So if you need help in your business, you could probably Google it, right? I pull up the flyer, and it's like Radiohead and Pearl Jam and 311 and bands that you all know, like big bands. And you know how on flyers like that, the names get smaller towards
Yeah.
the bottom? The very last name, I assure you, they didn't have a stage. Like, I definitely didn't go see them. There's 100 bands there. Zac Brown Band. Zac Brown Band. And I said to Mike, I go, man, I wonder if I even walk past that. Like, who knows? But that was almost 20 years ago. These guys were hustling their butts off. They probably drove themselves in whatever car that they drove, carried all their crap by themselves to go play Bonnaroo. And they were probably thrilled at the moment. And now everybody knows Zac Brown Band. And they sell out massive places. And they play at MSG and all these. We saw them in Arizona, massive show. But 20 years ago, they were the tiniest name, the very last one on the Bonnaroo thing. And I didn't even know that they were there. And I think tip of the iceberg, because we see them today and we're like, oh, Zac Brown Band, who are they? Oh, they were the ones who played the show at teen music awards, and then they blew up. It's like, no, that's not what happened, right? Like, I don't know if they actually did, so don't quote me on that. But it's that. So That's all we have to say about that. Thank y'all for some great questions.
Yeah, this was fun.
Hopefully this was a helpful episode, just getting a little peek inside Team DBE and what goes on in our elite mastermind and where the heads are of the gals sitting in the room and what they're thinking about. Love, love, love this so much. As always, friends, cheers to your evolution.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you loved this episode, I invite you to be a part of our ripple effect and share it with a friend. And please, if you feel called, take 30 seconds to leave a 5-star review, and I'll be forever grateful. Until next time, cheers to your evolution.